Welcome back to Wake Up, Catalyzing Consciousness. Today we're actually sitting together with Victor Sims, and we're living quite an extraordinary time. Victor's just come back from 2 days of conducting a seminar working with his Elabra technology. And Victor, you had practitioners who've come from quite a few places.
We had, although many of them had to cancel because they couldn't get out of the country, nevertheless we had about 20 people there from a couple of different countries, so that was good. Always a pleasure to see them. I've been working with those particular clients, customers, practitioners, friends for some of them for 15 years already.
So these are people with deep experience using your technology.
Yeah, and new people as well.
And just for us, we've come actually because we had anticipated shooting the seminar to create a demonstration video of Elabra. And I came from Italy, and my partner Edgar came from Austria. And basically we were banned from the hotel. We're shooting this during this period of the coronavirus crisis. And we have decided to use this time to sit down and see if there's some wisdom that can come through from essentially other realms. So, Victor, you work with a group of disincarnate guides and entities. And my partner Edgar and I also work with a group of disincarnate guides and entities. So I'm going to just open this session up and ask what wants to be shared right now, especially at this very particular point in our history on this planet. I think we're seeing a small catalyst, in fact, create a wave of global change right now. Whether it's temporary or permanent will be seen in the future. But Victor, the entities or the guides that you work with, do they have anything to say about this particular time that we're navigating?
No.
No interesting wisdom
kidding.
For us.
Just kidding. The answer to that is, we had a couple of days doing the seminar, which was brilliant. But the lead up to it was actually much more interesting, because the lead up to it, usually because I'm talking about my favourite subject, which I'm very passionate about, I need very little practice or rehearsal because I've been doing it for a long, long time. However, there were aspects of the presentation that I wanted to do that was outside my normal understanding of our technology. It was to do with EMF, 5G, the coronavirus, because we were, in the early throes of that. So in my preparation, I was really encouraged, and I mean intuitively, I felt, a pressure for 5 or 6 weeks ago, continuously between 5 and 6 weeks and this time, to really start to understand what sort of experience I wanted the seminar to have, what we were going to talk about, what was the main thrust. And there were two sides to it, really. The first side was that, we live in a multi-dimensional realm. So we have our reality on Earth here, which we consider is the only reality for many people, and the only timeline, and people don't understand timelines. There's a lot of New Age BS, which I've heard for 30 years about, there is no such thing as time. And my question to everybody that says that, say, well, what do you mean? Nobody answers it because they don't know. It's just one of these throwaway phrases. But in recent years, and especially in the last 5 or 6 weeks, I've been trying to, by my inner guides, my inner guidance, my intuitive self, my higher self, however you want to call that, have tried to explain to me what time is or isn't. But more importantly, it's how we can create our own reality. So one of the little phrases I used to encourage people to come along to the seminar was, how would you like to predict your own future? And of course this grabbed people's attention, because everybody says, oh, I'd like to learn that, Well, the truth of it is that the way to predict your own future is create it yourself. And there is a technique for doing so, which is one I was able to share at the seminar. So this took some preparation before the seminar in order to try and understand how I would deliver that.
And so I'm interested in unpacking that a bit. So this idea of creating your own future. We know from the laws of magic that thought creates, but you're talking about this on a different level. Unpack this for us a bit. What do you mean by? The idea of creating your own future, there is only one point that you can create your reality. And whatever reality that you want, obviously, is going to turn out to be your future. But there is only one point where you can create your own reality, and that's now. That's now. That's now. It's now. So, but people don't live in that moment. They seem to be either have their mind in the future. So when we're projecting into the future, we're not actually creating from this now.
Not necessarily, because I think if you want a certain type of future, and you want your timeline and your reality to reflect that, then obviously you're thinking ahead. So there's a great aspect of bringing what you'd like to bring into your future, those qualities that you'd like to bring. But for a lot of people, they might be thinking of the past and those traumas and things that they've got going on in their mind, keep rattling around, and they miss the opportunity of this moment, which is the only time that you're going to actually change that reality.
So essentially, if you're in fact living in the past or living from fear or trauma from the past, as you're working to create your future, you're coloring those events.
You are, and you will just sit in that cycle of recreating it because it's in your past, and as each moment comes, you're not choosing to choose another moment, not choosing another future, another reality. You're still stuck in that repetition of, I've got a disease, or I've got this, or I've got a belief system, or I am traumatized by something. As the now moment is the only opportunity you've got to create a new reality, people are missing the opportunity. They're just allowing that energy from before to keep cycling around, and they keep going and recreating their reality with that in it.
So there's another aspect to this. I mean, we're not just operating as individuals, we're also operating within a collective field. And yes. So there are certain programs that are running, expectations that are running. So if we're actually creating our future, but we're locked into a societal field, I'm presuming also coloring our future based on those expectations.
Yes, indeed. And if those interferences or those thoughts or doctrines from the group field are something that you attach yourself to, or we attach ourselves to, then of course that's going to colour our reality. But what happens if we decided actually that wasn't what the reality we wanted, and we want to have this reality?
I think this is a really important point right now, because there is in fact happening a collective field of fear right now as a result of this virus. So how do we, as individuals who are not really individual but are really connected to everyone else, how do we not in fact be swept away in this collective wave during this period?
I think there's probably several answers that complement each other there. One of the answers would be, there's a technique, if you like, for creating the reality that you want by being excited in every moment and choosing the thing that excites you most in that very moment. This is not my idea, this is an idea that's out there, But actually I've tried it and it works very well for me. I think that if in every single moment, so in this moment, in this moment, and in this moment, if we can be aware of all of those possible options and possible things that we could do, which is the one out of that that makes us slightly more excited? See, I'm sitting here in my thought process now that I've just brought that up in myself. It's like, you know, do I want to be here with you guys having doing a film? And it's actually, yeah, I like that. I find that very exciting. How could I make that even more exciting? Well, for me, I'm going to have a sip of water because that'll make me feel, you know, if I'm looking for options to do, actually, yeah, that one is something that I'd like to do, have a glass of water. I know it sounds very mundane.
But it's very interesting. But we're navigating a fall of events onto a neutral plane of existence. And so essentially you're coloring those neutral events with your optimism, your joy, your desire for. In the same way, we can do the opposite. We can, in fact, project fear and potentials that are not, in fact, bringing us into a place of joy and excitement.
I think the one difference there is the connectivity to one's higher self. So I think if we pursue a path of creating our reality that we want by choosing choosing that little bit of excitement in every moment, because it's such a, it could be such a minute amount of excitement in every moment.
Right.
But as we do that, we actually set up a pattern in our consciousness, and that pattern will allow us to have reflected to us, because it's like a mirror, isn't it? We sit there, whatever we send out, we get back. The universe is going to reflect it back to us, whatever that might be.
We're ultimately talking about energy, a resonance. We're creating a resonant field, and so we're going to bring into our field exactly the kind of resonance that we're projecting.
Okay, so if we had the concept of just having a little bit of excitement in every moment, every decision that we make is actually one with a little tiny bit more excitement, eventually that becomes a sort of a skill, and we learn it like riding a bike. But then our higher self, which is actually trying to make this little bit of excitement for us, is actually guiding us crumb by crumb, moment by moment, along our particular path to connect more with our higher self. So eventually this is actually like a message from our higher self saying, well, if you choose this and you choose this and you choose this and you choose that, you actually are getting towards being more connected with the higher self. But of course, that's where all the fun is.
Well, this aspect of our higher self, you're able to connect to your higher self. I know when I'm doing the kind of work that I do with clients where I'm doing readings, I'm often connecting to people's higher self and voicing that. What I always discover is that people enter this place of excitement because their higher self has often a much bigger vision of their lives than they're allowing themselves to have. So what separates you in terms of your ability to connect on this level on a daily basis to your higher self?
What separates me from doing it, do you mean?
What separates you? So the average person I do readings for are aware of the concept of higher self, but they're not on a daily basis in connection with their higher self. When you create that bridge for them and they get excited about a vision for their lives, it seems to open up something for them. They seem to be connecting with their higher self on a day-to-day basis. And I'll often get feedback from them. I couldn't even see this for myself, but you saw it. I'm like, no, you saw this for yourself. I mean, your higher self saw this for yourself. You've meditated for years. Is that part of what allows you to connect with your higher self in a more facile way than the average person might do?
I think it started directly from that, actually, yes. I mean, I've been, meditating for probably 40 years now, maybe even longer. And the idea of just intending to connect to intuition. I mean, there's a lot of problems people have with the word meditation, higher self. There's a lot of pushback when it comes to using words like that.
Right.
So I would just say maybe just intuition. So intuition to me is my higher self or my soul self, finding a space where my head is still and whispering me information. It's like prayer, but instead of just praying and having gratitude for all of those things, it's actually the little space after that, which is having spoken and made a prayer, but then actually sit and listen in that still space to see if there's anything that can be heard. And to me, that exercise of doing that over and over and over and over again has allowed me to listen to my inner voice, which I will call intuition, you could say, or the higher self, and receive information which is in the higher self's interest, in order for you to, or order for me to move along my spiritual path. I think everybody's on a spiritual path, whether they know it or not. Some people are actively, consciously on their spiritual path. That makes a difference.
So when you enter this place of silence where you're listening to your higher self, it's a little more crowded there than your higher self. You also are in touch with and tuning in to entities, beings, guides who are coming from a different potential dimension or area of existence.
Well, I think that's part and parcel of, if we learn to connect inwardly, through our heart, but essentially it's clearing all the dross that's in the way of the heart and going deeper and deeper inwards. Although the Lama would say you're not going anywhere, you're just being. We have all of these connections already intrinsically built into ourselves.
Everybody has these connections.
Through the heart.
Right.
And we are in this play, if I dare say it's a play. Some of my my guides would say it's a game, and I look at that word and that's offensive to me. The word game.
The game.
I can see their point now, but when I heard, it's just a game, it's like, well, this person's got all this trauma going on. I'm sure it doesn't feel like a game to them. Yeah. And certainly it wouldn't feel like a game to me under certain circumstances in the past. But, there we all are going through something, whatever flavour that is that we have as a human on this planet, doing our human thing. So I actually think I prefer the word play. So what I was shown was that each of our souls, we could say our higher self, or we say our soul self. Okay, we can imagine that your soul self, my soul self, the soul self of people who in this world seem to be doing some drastically, dynamically horrible things. There's some people out there doing what seem to be, if we judge them, will be really, really bad things. However, up at that soul level, they're not a bad soul. They're the same sort of soul that our souls are up there. It's just that they're playing a particular role in order to reflect something back to their local group, their people, or a society, or the world, and they're equal in their souls to we are. So there's this sort of play that's going on with some really, fantastic souls out there, and they're taking this horrible role that we would be really upset with. But the point about it is, we're all the same. We're all in the same. We're all the same in this same mass consciousness, or in this same collective consciousness, just playing out these different roles. So by changing a perspective even to that little bit, it actually, this person down the road there, they're dreadful, but actually they're just the same as you or me, and they're just playing this role. And in a way, you have to honour them and say thank you for playing that role, even though it's a horrible, dastardly thing that you're doing.
What you're speaking about, though, requires the ability to, on some level, zoom out from your reactionary self.
Yes, for sure.
And I think that's a skill that is almost a muscle that you learn to exercise, the ability to pull out so that you're watching yourself in a situation with that dastardly neighbor down the street who, in your reactionary self, is making you really angry. But when you're able to pull out and see
a bigger picture,
it diffuses the negative energy that's in the picture.
But don't we do that normally? I mean, if you're in a situation where, you're doing some work, or you're in a family situation, you step back, don't you, to look at the bigger picture.
Well, I
think
that's a choice that you can make.
Yeah.
But I think often people are drawn into an energy that's familiar. So there can be a negative dynamic in a family that you inexplicably find yourself drawn into because something about it feels familiar. And so that ability then to step out to see it from a bigger perspective disappears.
So I think a further answer to your question is that we have not only our higher self part of us that we're talking about now, but there are, in my own experience, different other energies, conscious beings, not necessarily ever been incarnated, but actually conscious beings that are dimensions above, or not above, that's another wrong word, but they are in a different dimension, having a different experience with a different set of rules, who are actually helping us.
What's their fascination with us? Why are they, I have also this experience of this group that we interact with. And the question becomes, why are they interested in humans? Why are they interested in people on this planet? Why bother?
I think because, maybe if I looked at my soul self and I was able to transport myself, I'm just building up a picture here. So if I was able to transport myself to a platform, okay, and this was my soul self platform, imagine it like a node, all right, and out of this node would come these branches, all right, and as we look out at those branches from this perspective, we can see all of these different incarnations that we would say, this being one of those incarnations, but then there'll be another branch with another incarnation, another one, another one, another one, another one. And because there's no such thing as time, which we can obviously go into as well, all of those incarnations are happening at once. It doesn't mean to say that there's two of me on this planet at this time, but they could well be somewhere else, having an incarnation, feeding back information to this soul platform, okay? And some of those incarnations could be not only be humanoid, but they could also be what we would consider ET, non-terrestrials, because they're on another planet somewhere. But they could also just be clouds of consciousness that don't have form. So because it's the one soul platform with all of these branches, then we're all connected at that point. So we could be in a situation where an aspect of myself would be up in the 9th dimension and has definitely got an interest in Victor sitting down here, and if it can help, they will.
This is exactly what you drew on the whiteboard that time.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
this was what it was.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Exactly, which was, yeah.
I don't remember that.
Oh, no, and so you're, these 9th dimensional beings that you're referring to.
Yes, I mean, they could be 5th dimensional, or they could be 6th or 7th, but in this particular case.
But I'm interested in the 9th dimensional entities because they've been knocking on your head the past few weeks in preparation for this particular seminar.
That is true.
So have they actually revealed why now? Why are they knocking on your head now? Have you been in touch with them before, or is this a new?
No, it's for me it's new. Yes, I mean I have had impressions from other beings for several years, which come through as my own consciousness. Usually when I'm doing my design work, because I spend all my time doing design work. So as I'm doing that design work, I take a step back and I'd meditate on something, for 5 or 10 minutes, and then I thought, a thought may drop into my mind, which will help me with a particular project. I'm sure everybody has this. You go to sleep and you wake up in the morning with the answer. There's hundreds and hundreds, thousands of stories like that. Well, my story is very similar. I'll meditate and a thought will drop into my mind about a problem that I was having with a piece of electronics or some sort of design that I was doing. And I consider that, well, most people would just consider it as information suddenly arises within you, in one's mind, and you think, oh, that's a great idea. You know, you've almost acknowledged a bit of information that seems to have come from the outside or has arisen somehow inside. So I use that information in order to, you know, go about my daily life and build the things that we build. But these, there are various different groups of beings that have a particular interest in, say, technology. They might have it in, or in health, or in, I'm just picking a few words, free energy, or it's going to be in agriculture or growing things. You know, they've got a particular, there seems to be a collective consciousness that I've experienced, for different collective consciousness for these different topics that I've experienced over the years. And depending on what I'm working on, will be a different group that comes forward with potential help. And all I have to do is just, you know, be in the right space, a meditative space. Could be sitting under a tree, doesn't have to be meditation. You don't have to have your eyes closed, but you're just really there to you know, to sit and be connecting with the heart, because these are very heart-orientated experiences. Excuse me. For when I perceive these beings come in, there's always a test for me. So the test is, what does this feel like? And just the way I'm wired, I think. But I feel, you know, in my heart, you know, a glow. And the glow is very lovely. It's a beautiful glow. If it's not that glow, then, you know, I'm not interested in dealing with those beings. But I find that with this ninth dimensional connection, it's probably a connection, a part of my soul. You know, when I was talking about that soul platform with all these nodes coming off of it, it's probably just one of those. And for whatever reason, this timing, I don't know why, but for the timing as we are now, obviously they got something to share. You know, there are other beings, there are inner earth beings, which are fourth density beings. And they've been there for years, just trying to reach out to people all over the world, just sitting there in their meditative state, just reaching out to anybody that wants to listen, with some fantastic wisdoms about how we could, you know, do our lives. But then those wisdoms are no different from what you would read in any sacred texts, or any of these, you know, other rituals and things that we might do. It's no different from those. But these beings are, you know, reaching out to try and help humanity, partly because they've got their own agenda, and that agenda is really to help us, because they can advance as well.
So we're going to bring this conversation to a close for now, and we'll be back with you in a little while with a second conversation with Victor Sims. Thank you for being with us. And Victor, thank you for our conversation.
Thank you, it's been great.